Hello and welcome back to episode 229 of the Ideal Nutrition podcast. Today we're going to be talking about fibremaxxing and whether there's such thing as going too high with your fibre intake. Just for some context, fibremaxxing is a bit of a trend at the moment, and it refers to intentionally increasing your fibre intake beyond standard recommendations. So ideally looking at any chance to increase your fibre intake.
So I've been seeing this on TikTok and on Instagram, more on TikTok just from general people talking about how they've been implementing it and stuff. And then on Instagram, oddly enough, even more through like the evidence-based community, through specifically like gut health, dietitians and nutritionists is where I'm seeing it the most often. We're going to start by talking about, if you were to do it, what are some practical ways to do it?
Yeah, so I guess if we jump straight into that then, there are a few ways to help increase fibre intake generally. And then also I guess the last little component that we didn't mention of this fibremaxxing is looking at increasing diversity. So not just increasing one type of fibre, but increasing all different type of plant foods generally. So an easy thing to do is switching the staples that you use. So switching from normal white bread to multigrain or seedy breads, swapping to multiple sources of grains like brown rice, quinoa, that sort of thing, and using whole grain cereals.
Yeah, for sure. So like I'm even seeing on TikTok people doing like snack plates where they've just got like all these different things. They have different like vegetables and stuff like that. Certain snacks that people go with are like, for example, like edamame beans, just as another one to chuck in there. Chia pudding, roasted chickpeas. Some people are doing like homemade energy balls where they'll have like dates, oats, flax seeds and nuts, all of which are fibre rich and are different sources. Adding legumes to just like regular meals and stuff like that.
Yeah, those are exactly the sort of ones that I've been seeing as well. And then also people talking about swapping the staples that they use generally. And I mentioned before breads, but even just looking at different salads, different mixes, using different varieties of salad mixes or even frozen veg where there are a lot more variety of different plants in there.
Incredible. So now we're going to talk about benefits. So there can be a ton of potential benefits. Like there's even, I've spoken about this before, but there's even charts I've seen where they've literally just like plotted people's fibre intake and then their risk of chronic disease, and the higher fibre goes, like the lower the risk of chronic disease. So starting off with some general benefits, like obviously improved digestive regularity, potentially reducing constipation. Complex topic there, but like in general, people do go to the bathroom more frequently. We know all of the benefits from the gut microbiome perspective and just increasing beneficial bacterial activity. Promoting satiety and helping with appetite control. Low key, this is actually the main thing I've been seeing on TikTok where it's like usually a woman being like, why did nobody tell me that if I like had super high fibre, I would just be full all the way through until lunch? And then potential for supporting blood sugar regulation, cholesterol lowering, and all the other potential benefits with the long-term chronic disease prevention stuff as well.
Yeah, and those are exactly the same things that I agree with you there. Generally, higher fibre intake is just associated with positive health outcomes. The question then is, what are the general fibre recommendations? We know that for women it is 25 grams a day and men is 30 grams a day, according to the Australian Nutrient Reference Values. Is there such thing as going too high? And that's kind of what we want to talk about today. So there are definitely a few things to consider. We know that, first off, rapidly increasing your fibre intake can lead to gastrointestinal symptoms, like being blocked up, constipation, bloating, that sort of thing. And often people who don't have a high fibre intake to start with can end up going over or above their tolerance levels here.
Other things could be if somebody's not having enough water alongside that. Although, like from my end, I'm always just big on everyone just being well hydrated all the time. So I'm going to encourage that regardless of what you're doing. Potentially, displacing other nutrients simply by focusing too much on this. I have heard other people talking about how it could reduce the absorption of nutrients, and that is kind of relevant. I wouldn't focus on that too much, just also because if you're focusing on a really high fiber diet through a variety of foods, you're also probably going to have a really good nutrient intake in general as well. And then from that satiety perspective, some people might get too full and not eat enough total calories. Like this is a rarer one, but I might see it amongst athletes who have really high calorie needs. And if they're pushing high fiber, they might not be able to get everything in.
Yeah, for sure. Should we chat about some considerations then, or how we would recommend to implement these things? Or was there anything else you wanted to add on to that?
Not heaps. I do think like the biggest thing is, I think people, if they are jumping straight to this, like if they're going from, let's say, like a standard diet to intentionally trying to fibre max, the most common thing would be that quick increase. I think you have to build up to this over time.
For sure. There are a few other things I think to consider in there as well. If we're looking at bowel movements, we know the type of fibre matters as well. So if you're just adding insoluble fibre, so just straight veggies, legumes, that sort of thing, can be a bit of an issue. So we want to make sure that there are soluble fibre in there as well. So making sure that you're adding things like chia seeds, flax seeds. Again, sweet potato, that sort of thing, pumpkin, making sure that there is a bit of soluble fibre to help that balance of the two types of fibres. And then, making sure that, like you say, go slowly. And if we want to put a number on that, maybe it is incrementally increasing it week by week.
Yeah, and it's not something I think people need to track, but I do think having some level of awareness, like if you're ever curious, even just like putting into Google or something like that and seeing how much fibre in X food or Y amount of X food or whatever. But yeah, those are the main things I'd be focusing on.
Yeah, for sure. So
as a quick summary, I do think overall the concept of fibremaxxing is a positive trend. There's very few trends out there that you're like, if you do this, this likely reduces your risk of chronic disease outcomes. So like pretty on board with that. I just think if doing this, 1, go slowly, and then 2, don't take it to an extreme. I just don't think we're at risk of an extreme. I wish I had stats here, but statistically a massive percentage of people do not consume enough fibre. I don't think we're at risk of many people going to extreme with this, but I figured I'd put that out there too.
Last thing I wanted to add is another way to think of it is if you're wanting to track the amount of fibre you're eating, you could also do counting the amount of plant foods that you're eating. We know when you get above that 30, that can make a big positive impact on your gut bacteria. So maybe not counting or looking at the amount of fibre in grams, but looking at the types and numbers of plant-based foods that you do include.
This has been episode 229 of the Ideal Nutrition Podcast. As always, thank you so much for listening. And if you could please leave a rating and review, we would massively appreciate that.